Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Sword and Tea, a TTRPG chat show here on Sword and Key, where we talk to game designers, game creators, artists, and all sorts of wonderful people in the TTRPG community. Today, Derek Sorda, you see in pronouns, I'm joined by Will Fish, the lead designer on Candlelight Inquisition. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. It's honestly the honor is mine. Uh, a
Yeah, it's
designer
great to
kind of
have you
starting
here.
off. So
Yeah, no, and I mean, what a way to start off. We're going to talk a lot about Candlelight Inquisition. I actually want to shout out channel contributor and friend Jen, who I think was our middleman between this. So you met at a con and actually connected us. So massive shout out to
yes,
Jen, who is at a con again right now. Um,
yes, Jin is
and
great.
Yeah, speaking of Jen, the person behind Long Dog Dice, one of our affiliates. So let me do all our channel stuff here at the top here. This is a Sword and Key stream. You can find all of Sword and Key stuff at beacons.ai/Sword and Key. Find all of our links, like our socials, Blue Sky and Instagram, our Discord, which has great places to chat about a number of things, including this game. You can post questions about Candlelight Inquisition, questions to Will about game design or just the game itself, both on the Discord server in the Sword and Tea chat, or you can always post them on the Twitch chat live here as well. If you're watching this later on YouTube, I recommend heading over to the Discord so you can post questions there and we can get them answered as quickly as possible. Links to our YouTube are also available on beacons.ai/Sword and Key, and you can also find links to some of our charitable organizations. We just closed our charitable campaign for Doctors Without Borders, but we have a new campaign up very soon. I think this next one's going to be Canine Companions for Independence, ever so briefly, in September. But I'll talk more about that at the end. But we also have links to our affiliates, Long Dog Dice being one of our affiliates. Jen makes incredible dice sets. You actually can get the official Sword and Key dice set from our Horizons Call game, which is our nautical campaign. So the D6 actually has the Sword and Key logo on it. It's pretty cool, and it's this vibrant shade of blue. You can pre-order a set for yourself, or just get your perfect set of dice there. When you do, use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase. You can also use that same code, Sword and Key, for 10% off your first purchase at Eldritch Foundry. They make custom minis. We're also affiliates with Hit Point Press, makers of Humblewood and animated spell cards and Griffin Saddleback books. We have an affiliate link if you're going to be purchasing from them. All that said, we're not here to talk about any of that. We're here to talk about Candlelight Inquisition, a game that, congratulations to you, Will, is fully funded currently on Kickstarter.
Yes, just today.
But just today, yeah, no, you hit and exceeded that goal. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
There is still time to be a late pledger. If that is the word for that.
Yes.
So yes, so don't wait. You can still get in a late pledge and get some of the cool stuff on that. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Before that, well, I'd love to know. You said you were kind of a new designer for TTRPGs. What is your history with TTRPGs? When did you get into them? Maybe what was your first, and what kind of led you to designing games?
Um. Well, I said that I was a new designer, and that is correct in the sense that this is going to be my first successfully marketed work. But
Okay.
I wouldn't really say that I'm. I mean, everyone who comes into this career or hobby or whatever it is to them has a big history with it. I mean, I started designing games when I was a kid, right? And in fact, this project actually is the final development of a project I started when I was 12, though that one was way very different and not very good.
I think that's maybe for the best. I'm not sure there's anything I did at the age of 12 that as an adult I'd be like, that was a good idea. I loved
Yeah.
everything about that, spot on the way it was. But that's really incredible that you have had like this kind of genesis for it. I mean, so many years ago. That's wild. So like, yeah, okay, so you had this idea since you were 12. Were you playing TTRPGs at the age of 12, or have you always been kind of like fantasy fiction oriented as well?
Well, I would say I've always definitely been fantasy fiction oriented,
Sure.
since before memory.
Yeah.
I was playing TTRPGs at 12. I was introduced to them earlier, but started playing them in earnest then. Which is kind of funny. My brother and his friend introduced me to my first long-term campaign, which was a White Wolf game. interesting place to start for a 12-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I had I think a little bit of a loss of innocence reading some of the splat books.
Yeah, that's kind of jumping in the deep end on it, but I respect
Yeah.
that. It's the same, I've some of the nicest people I've met are like, yeah, I read Game of Thrones when I was 10. I was like, that's too early
Yeah.
for that. Did you not hear of The Hobbit? Like, but no, I respect maybe that deep end because it does, I think, build some calluses
Yeah.
to what you're going to experience later. Okay, so starting out with White Wolf games. Let's see. When did so? What was your first? Are you like a big TTRPG person that you've like run the gamut? Are you like is D&D kind of? I know D&D is a first for a lot of people. I know some people have strong opinions on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
were you gonna
please.
finish your question?
No, you're good. Jump in whenever. Please
I
stop
was
me.
gonna say yes. Of course, I played D&D. I played a lot of D&D. I think most people of the hobby have.
Yeah.
The I know that there is a lot of indies and indie enthusiasts who despise D&D. I do not. I think it honestly is remarkable for what it is trying to be. Delivering that sort of kind of pulp superhero fantasy in a more accessible way. It has a lot of holdovers of design that it doesn't necessarily need to have now, but I mean, I think that the designers with it know what they're doing, even in maybe if it's not really like my favorite game. I do have run it before. I used to do professional GMing, and I liked Curse of Strahd. I mean, it's a great module.
Yes.
And other games I've played a lot of random RPGs. Right now I'm playing one called Heart by the people who made Spire, if you're familiar with those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we just had a writer on for Aspire module not that long ago. So yeah, I've recently gotten very deep into Spire.
Yes. We're actually hoping to play Spire soon after that. Then Blaze in the Dark, Call of Cthulhu, Pathfinder, Fate, some like small one pagers. I could sit here and list off a bunch of games.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely
Yeah.
fair. It sounds like you've played a lot. When did you start getting into writing for TTRPGs?
So as I said before, this was a project that I kind of engendered when I was 12, right?
Mhm.
And that honestly, that was sort of when I really got a passion for serious game design. I am when you say like writing the setting, the story, the book, I am a writer. I would say more so my specialty is as a game designer.
Okay.
So
And I know for some people there's maybe they're not sure of the difference, and some people maybe define it differently. How would you define the difference between designer and writer?
writer. So well, a writer is a type of designer. I mean, if we're going to
Sure.
be very broad, but I guess when I'm specifying by saying I'm mostly a game designer as opposed to a writer, I think if a writer is a designer, an artist of narrative, basically like static narratives. They write books, movie plot lines. Maybe they write the dialogue in a branching story game, but even if it's a branching story game, it's still, explicit writing in there, right? And then a GM also is a form of writer. They can write the world, they write the NPCs, though they act it out in a slightly different way. That's a different activity. And when I say I'm mostly a game designer is more so thinking about what is the experience, what is the play, how do I shape the mechanics of the setting, how do I shape the mechanics of the game? How do I shape the setting to facilitate exploration through play? Right?
Yeah.
So, well, I definitely making an RPG. You do a lot of writing. I would say my philosophy is more so coming from a game designer rather than a writer. It's like I made something I want people to play, explore through play. You know, not a not my book that I made into a game.
Yeah. No, I think that distinction is really important. I really appreciate that. It very much feels like the not all what how do I want to phrase not all writers are designers, but all designers are right. Maybe I've got that backwards. And there feels like a strange Venn diagram to this, but
Yes.
I absolutely see your point. So yes, you've been writing for quite some time. You've had this idea since you were 12. Maybe tying this into Candlelight Inquisition itself, the genesis of it does feel kind of uh somewhat distant. I don't know how old you are. But at least 12 was a long time ago for me. So
Yeah.
maybe that's how I'm framing it.
I'm
Um,
pretty young. I'm
okay.
26. I don't
Okay.
mind sharing that.
But still, more than a decade. So, with that, how did we get from 12 years old with this idea? And you said it changed quite a bit.
Oh yes.
How did it get to Candlelight Inquisition now? Where did that come about? And maybe even to that, some of the inspirations that led to the game.
Yeah. So when I started off at being 12, right, and then obviously I don't have really any grand artistic ambition for it. I'm just like I want to make a game. I want to make a
Hmm.
TRPG like the ones I've been playing, and I threw a whole bunch of things in a setting and mechanics I thought were interesting to me, because 12-year-olds have very passionate fixations, which they are not shameful of, which is good.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, we
Um,
we haven't fully learned shame yet. Still pre-high school. Yeah.
but I played the game and like, this, it wasn't. I could tell even as a kid, like, oh, this is not great, right? There's some friction here, but I'm like, I guess there was something in it. Like, there are things about here that are interesting to me that I want to continue to develop and solve. And not only that, I feel like there is something that I could say about myself by just, as a kid, throwing the things that spoke to me against the wall, and then over the years refining it um, into something. And I think there is a lot of kind of personal stuff that comes out in my work a lot of the time, and you can see that somewhat in Candlelight Inquisition. Uh, a lot of my personal growth and maturity has been dealing with um, the kind of uncertainty of spirituality and philosophy, and
Sure.
then combined with a society that kind of, you know, a society that wants it to be certain and is willing to do harmful things for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that's sort of explored in kind of like Inquisition. It's a very I say like, oh, it's about investigation, intrigue, and introspection. Most of the game is like the intrigue and introspection, like, the pulp detective and conspiracies, but the interest. So most of it's intrigue and investigation. That's what I meant to say.
Hmm.
But the introspection is also an important part of it. Of like your characters, maybe they find out that the creed that they had associated with before, they no longer can um, justify its morals, or they find out that maybe the authority they looked up to wasn't as great as it was.
Yeah.
Uh, So I think that's a big. That's sort of, I guess, if you're talking about how we got there, it's sort of, I guess, more of a personal journey in that sense.
That's really
Um,
interesting. Yeah.
I would say I more physically like what I did. I will say it's not the same game I made when I was 12 years old. I went through several iterations. I think this is probably, if you're going to separate them into distinct games, this is probably the fourth like attempt at this game I made. Right.
Okay.
So
First official
there,
version, but like
yeah,
beneath that, this is the Mark IV for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There was the first game I made when I was a kid was like just another adventure RPG, except I was like inspired by Dwarf Fortress for some reason and made like this really complex wound system where your lung could get like you've rolled on a table to see what organ you.
Interesting. Okay.
It was very clunky, and then the kind of the intermediate versions were somewhere in between, where they used a pretty simple like skill plus modifier system, but you saw some of the mechanics that would be in the full game, like the profession system and the willpower, especially the willpower system and the new die system being discovered. Then where I kind of bring the psychological elements into it, and then this final version is really the refinement of like, yes, this is a mystery investigation game in entirety, and focusing in on those elements that I liked.
Hi. So we've kind of danced around a little bit. Candlelight Inquisition, elevator pitch. If you were, and you've got your Kickstarter, so I know you've definitely done a little bit of this already. But if somebody was approaching you, it's like, hey, I got 10, 30 seconds. What is Candlelight Inquisition? How would you describe your game?
Kind of like Inquisition, I've called it like a gothic noir RPG. I said this tagline before. It's investigation, intrigue, and introspection. You're
Hmm.
some sort of seekers. You belong to a myriad of factions. You might be part of the Inquisition, you might be part of the Rebellion, but whatever the case, you are unraveling mysteries, occult mysteries, and mundane conspiracies. Sort of, and in that journey, also kind of coming into conflict with yourself as well.
Okay, interesting. Okay, um, I definitely want to circle back because you said there's a lot of personal stuff that you should put in this game, and I think that
Yeah.
lends a lot to passion that people have about their games. Um, and I think that that is kind of a beautiful thing about investigation being such an important thing because investigation implies uncertainty. It implies that are truths being sought, not that necessarily that they're going to be found, but that clues may be along the way. I think that's really, really cool. So Candlelight Inquisition is Gothic Noir, and I know that has like people will often have thoughts when they get like those keywords, right? What were maybe, or maybe there's a different way I could phrase this. If you were going to point to certain media that maybe inspired you, or if you were going to maybe go to people and say, hey, if you like this thing, you'll like Candlelight Inquisition. Are there any bits of media of any kind that you might point to as something that might have connectivity to this?
Well, this isn't gothic noir, but it
Hmm.
is. If you have watched this or read it, then you will be able to see the massive similarities between my game and this. There's a lot of Full Metal Alchemist. It's a lot of Full
Okay.
Metal Alchemist.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, this other medium with uh kind of industrial like early modern era technology um taking place in an authoritarian regime. It's a lot about conspiracies and intrigue. See, there's magic too. You can see the similarities.
Definitely the ties to it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Uh, did you want to say something? I was going to go into other.
Please, no, by all means.
I was going to say. I also the video game Disco Elysium. I feel like
Sure.
tonally this feels very much similar. There's investigation, there's the psychological elements. There is, while Disco Elysium definitely has a political message,
Mhm.
uh, rightfully so, I believe it. It has that sense of like philosophical and political uncertainty also that I try to capture in kind of Inquisition. The world is complex. There's a lot of moving parts, and you're trying to navigate and find truth in that. So, then Disco Elysium. I think probably those are the two biggest points of comparison. If you're RPG tonally, if you're familiar with RPGs, you might find the mechanics similar to something like Blades in the Dark. There's a lot of similarities between my game and Blades in the Dark.
Interesting.
I also took a lot of inspiration from Gumshoe, but I don't know how much. I don't think that it necessarily feels like Gumshoe in practice.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of again the connective tissue between different forms of media and even the games there from what I've seen of Candlelight Inquisition. So we've got the investigation, we've got the introspection part kind of almost like tied into it, not necessarily surface level, but still very integral to it. And then the Gothic noir kind of overarching thing. The thing I want to shout out that when you first reached out to me and I started seeing a lot of stuff that you sent in your press pack, the artwork in this is incredibly evocative, and I
Yes.
think yeah, just ties such a cool kind of web around the overall game. Because once I start delving into rules and the seekers and everything else, I've got such a cool reference point for it. So I wanted to shout that out. I want to definitely talk about because you have a list of people, including the artists that I know contributed to this, and I definitely want to shout them out here in a minute. But when it comes to the game itself, was there any direction that you had for artwork? Was there any kind of like, did you already have in mind what this was going to look like, or was it kind of like a here's the gameplay, like go and do your thing?
I well, I did have an idea of the art direction. I don't intend to take credit for it. My idea of the direction is far less effortful and meaningful than Anton. That's the artist. His wonderful art. Yeah, I did. I did when I was seeking an artist to help me on this project. I did intentionally choose Anton for his skill set, though, because I wanted sort of this expressionist, abstract, almost ethereal style of art.
Yeah.
And I think Anton does a really good job of adding that sort of kind of somber and like ethereal art. It definitely fits the vibe of the mystery. I definitely fits the themes and the mystery of Candlelight Inquisition.
Yeah, it's haunting. It's like it's all those purples and pink hues. It's like colors you don't often see in nature. Uh there's the like almost like tinge of body horror to some of it.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. Um okay, so Candlelight Inquisition, is this, so you said it unique rule set, unique world as well. Well, what are people going to be looking at when they jump into a game of Candlelight Inquisition? Maybe a little bit about the world, and then we can go into gameplay as well, and even the PC seekers. What are people going to be looking at if they pick up a copy?
Uh
I know it's a really big question, so
Yeah.
yeah, feel free to ask me to structure that out better if you would like.
Cool. Let me think. My thoughts, they move slowly, so bear with me.
You're totally fine.
What?
Yeah, it's a
So
200 page book, so it's a lot to talk about. But yeah, please take your time.
I would say, in terms of the setting of Candlelight Inquisition, uh, this, uh, as I said before, comparing it to Full Metal Alchemist, it is this um, authoritarian empire in an early modern fantasy world. So there's trains and telegrams and so on. This world, though, this empire is defined by its factions, defined by spreading corruption and by competing ideals, right? You have the empire itself, who is this sort of they have colors of like Catholic inspired theocrats like you might see in Warhammer, but they also have a sort of like Gnostic enlightenment vibe, which I think is an interesting irony. Like you're like seeking spiritual enlightenment, but you're being very dogmatic about it.
Yeah, this kind of open-minded zealot.
Yeah.
That's it is an interesting dichotomy for sure.
The you have uh you have mystics of this new dream sorcery that has been developed, who are seeking the truth through mysticism and spirituality underground, right? But perhaps dangerously, because the dream is. Now, here we get to where I'm not a great orator. I kind of buried the lead, the dream being this dangerous eldritch realm.
You're okay. We'll get to it always eventually. So yeah, okay. Feel free to stream of thought.
The you have some of like the more mundane political interests as well, like the like old noble families of conquered peoples who want to regain their ancestral lands, the new industrialists who want the like capitalists who want to secure their place in the new order, criminal syndicates, the rebellion, and what they're fighting between their idealism and also the cynical means that they have to do to advance their goals. And you have all these factions competing with each other, and the player is put into this aligned with one of the factions, right? So the assumed faction is the Inquisition, but you don't have to be the Inquisition. You could be seekers of the rebellion. You could be seekers of the Free Scholars, this like underground intellectual group. You could be seekers, part of a crime syndicate, right? But the idea is that you were kind of thrown into this tumultuous place full of like conspiracies and warring ideals, a very complicated world, and you have to solve mysteries and find your truth the best you can.
Interesting. Okay. I know we were talking about Spire just a minute ago. It having again delved into that somewhat recently, and that very complicated world theme is very familiar. So it sounds like a number of factions that players could join, and I did see that this is a game that can be played with 1 to 4 players. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've played it with more. I think the nature of the game is better for lower player counts, just because it's a game that benefits from characters being able to take more players being able to do like their own independent scenes
Yeah.
and have their own RP moments. But if you have like 6 people who all go off and do separate things, then the people are sitting doing nothing for ages. So
Yeah, a lot of splitting the party. Um, so I guess a question, two questions based off the factions. Is it more ideal for a table of, 2 to 4 players then for all of the players to be part of the same faction? Or is it kind of interesting for them to kind of mix and match and have like different drives or goals?
okay, so this is actually an interesting question, and it's something that I can answer with one of the mechanics in the game.
Yeah.
So I would say the generic answer is it's best to be associated with one faction,
Okay.
but the truer answer is better to say it's best that you are part of some cohesive group, right? And the character creation actually starts with a group creation, which is meant to walk through players through what type of group they want to be, right? So maybe you want to be a community. It's like a Stranger Things adventure where you're like random people of this community thrown into something bigger than themselves. Maybe you're going to
Yes.
play the police investigators, like classic cop drama, you know. Maybe you're going to be a Black Ops team and have a bit more of an action-packed adventure, right? So you're part of this cohesive group, right? But within that group, if you can explain it, there is not. You might be able to have some faction differences, like the community is a pretty obvious example, right? Like a township could just have people with very different alliances, but they're all aligned to the town, right? But one of them might be an imperialist, one of them might be part of a cult, you know. But as long as they care about the town, they have something to connect them.
Sure.
But even with something like the police investigators, right? I mean, maybe you guys are private eyes, right? And or maybe there are 2 different investigators like groups now working together. As long as you have that shared element, that shared purpose, you can be of different factions. I Yeah, I think that's an answer.
That's a great answer. Yeah, I think that's an interesting take on it for sure, because I know a lot of people simplify it down to, listen, you're all answering to the same boss, but that boss isn't always necessarily the faction, right? Like you were saying,
Yeah.
sometimes it is the goal or the thing that people care about, and different interests can care about the same thing. Um, so I always have to ask this whenever we have wonderful people like yourself on this show, and they have a list of things that they have painstakingly created. Do you have a favorite kid? Do you have a favorite faction? Like, is there one that maybe calls most to you, or that you had the most enjoyment making?
Um, that's hard. That's hard for me to answer.
That's fair. It's also like you don't have to make them jealous of each other. Like you don't have to have an answer if you
Yeah.
if one does not exist.
Um, I think there is. I think that there is 4 that kind of tie.
Okay. How many factions in total, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, there's quite a lot. I don't know.
That's
I
okay.
don't haven't counted.
More than 4 at least. Okay.
Yeah, more than 4. I would
Okay.
say there's about 8, which are like the most developed, like complete ones.
Okay.
That I recommend. Like, oh, these would be good ones to start with. But I include some others in the books. Like, you wanna, I don't know, be part of the press. you know.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the I I'm a bit self-conscious saying this because it's like, ooh, the but I think the Inquisition is one of my factions I like.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I know. So I think in a lot of games, it probably will take an antagonistic role, right? You know, they're in the setting, they're more like, you know, the federal police, but they do have some of that Inquisitor uh, dogma enforcer element to them, and given that it's the authoritarian empire, some of them have a little bit of a secret police vibe, right?
Sure.
But the reason I find them compelling from a player perspective is I've always found it interesting for earnest characters, or like well-meaning earnest characters, to come into conflict with their own ideals and with the establishment which supports those ideals, right?
Yeah.
And I think just Inquisition, playing like if you're playing an earnest Inquisitor, like I just want to, you know, I'm a faithful guy and I want to uphold justice, and you know, get involved in some great scandals and forced to question if you're really in the right or if you're working with the bad guys. I think that's a pretty compelling story to me.
That's absolutely, yeah. I love that trope. I love the trope of, like, I'm a stormtrooper. I'm one of the good guys. Like, we have the
Yeah.
skulls in our helmets and everything else. And it's like just the very steady realization that you had the best intentions. You joined the most powerful way to do good in your world, and then holy shit, it is this like super corrupt thing. You're like stepping on people's necks, and it's just like the organization you were part of is so incredibly different than what you believed it was. And even though you still hold those ideals, you are not able to effectually continue to hold those ideals given the task that's been placed on you. And are you going to then stick to it and stay with this organization that morally doesn't align with you? Are you going to adjust your morals, or are you going to make a decision to then rebel against this authority that you have respected for potentially your whole life? I absolutely agree with you. I think that's a great way to look at it. Plus, I mean, when it comes to the Inquisition, the name's on the tin, like
Yeah.
it's right there. So yeah, I think that's really great. That is absolutely one of my absolute favorite tropes, and I see it so often now. As you mentioned, our society is not exactly the most conducive to aligning with authority and being morally correct.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are faced with that. Yeah, heavy sigh, I think, is a perfect response to that. Um, okay, so when it comes to the players themselves, they've again we talked about there's 1 to 4. They're aligning themselves to factions right off the bat. Players in this game are called seekers.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't come across this, so I apologize if it was posted somewhere. But do GMs have a specific name in Candlelight Inquisition?
I've considered it, but currently they do not. I've been to be like, oh,
Fair
you're the
enough.
wire puller, but
Fair enough. Okay, so when it comes to seekers, then, what does character creation look like for them? I know you mentioned that there's similar gameplay to Blades in the Dark. So, is it like full character generation, or is it based off of kind of like the archetypes that Blades in the Dark has?
so I would say this is more full character creation. I have a pretty in-depth character creation system because I want people to have a lot of information for a complex character to start off in a complex world, right? Um, so your session 0 is going to be a full session in this game.
Okay.
uh, actually, I can share the. This is a decent time to share the demo because released a character creation, some of the rule sets of the character creation a little while ago. I posted that in.
Great. Yeah, we'll get that posted in our Twitch chat here. So this is, I guess we should have mentioned at the top. The company that Candlelight Inquisition is being put out by is Blackmouth Cur
Yes,
Games. Yes. So this will lead you to their website, and we'll have a character creation demo that you all can check out. Thank you so much for sharing that.
of course.
Okay, so in-depth character creation. I like that, complex characters for a complex world. I think that's
Yeah.
great. Okay, so what kind of characters are we looking to make? Is there a class system, stats? What does that kind of look like for people who are going to be making a character?
So I would say there are the two most major elements of your character are going to be your archetype and your professions. So you might notice that professions is different than archetype. So archetype is sort of your character class, but it's not what you do in this game. Rather, it's more of your character's approach to problem solving, how
Sure.
they think, how they approach the mystery. Vulgarly, it's a personality test, right?
Okay. Okay,
Um,
I like that.
but I was just kind of like leaning into the psychological and like introspection themes of the game. I wanted the character abilities and advancements to be sourced not necessarily from technical skill, but from like a deeper, like I guess spiritual strength,
Yeah.
So the four archetypes that there's the intelligentsia, who is someone who approaches problems seeking to understand them and look for novel solutions. So there would be your most reliable clue finder, right? There is the empath, who they see a problem and they think first how it affects other people, right? There would be more of your support. They can also be a manipulator. They can use their empathy for evil if they desire it.
Right.
The Then there is the partisan, which is someone who is very steadfast to their ideals, and because of their fervor, they're very good at confrontation, either physical violence or like debating. But that same zeal kind of makes them a bit closed-minded or black and white, right? Then so they are maybe the equivalent of the tank. So there isn't a lot of there is violence in this, but this isn't a monster slaying dungeon crawling game, right? That violence
Yeah,
is something
less
that you should
structured
avoid.
combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, fighting was not in the
Yeah.
investigation introspection. It was not
Yeah.
necessarily in the pitch. So yeah, I
Uh
think it's important to note.
but when I say like, oh, the partisan is the tank, it's almost more so than I'm saying not only can they resist harm in a violence way, but they can resist emotional, spiritual harm. Like they are resistant to becoming hard boiled.
Yeah, it's
uh,
almost a resistance to change in a way, perhaps
yeah,
for good or ill.
yeah, exactly. And then the last archetype is the professional. They are pragmatist. Um, they're like they're pragmatist, really focused on their trade. They're like, I can get something done, worldly done. I can get it done efficiently, and I'm going to focus on the practical, not like these higher concerns,
Hmm.
right? Um, so those are the four archetypes, and like I said, they're sort of a character class that determine your signature move and your advancements. Then the other thing is the professions, and the professions are, well, they're what your character actually does and is skilled at. There's quite a large list of professions. This is sort of where I took inspiration from Gumshoe, is that having a lot of different professions gives people a lot of different specialties, lenses they can look at a mystery, right? Like if you have I'm trying to think of something. like, if a generic like investigation skill, I mean that you roll for investigation, you're gonna the GM is gonna be incentivized to give you pretty similar hints every time, right? But say like you have, oh, I am a psychologist and I want to analyze the scene. You're gonna get different information that way, right? Like, you're gonna think of it like, what would motivate this person, right? Or maybe you're a soldier and you analyze this scene. They'd be thinking, was that tactically advantageous? Like, do I recognize the weapons you used here?
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of different professions, and going on what I was saying with the professions affecting your investigation, there's another element of the system I want to mention, which isn't so much character creation, but it is a character feature, which are search questions. So in this game, you have a list of search questions, which are questions your character is good at answering an investigation, and your professions award you some of these. So for example, a coroner has the search question, what is the cause and time of death? Right? So that's not the only question you can ask, right? But you're better at asking it, right?
Right, that's the one that you specialize in more
Yeah,
than
exactly.
like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, coroners, what time did they die? And then eating sandwiches in front of dead bodies. That's, if I've seen any procedural show, those are the two things they're great at.
Indeed. I am very fond of the pre-gen coroner for the modules. So
Yeah, I'm
yes.
I'm looking through what you sent over. So, like you said, a lot of professions. I mean, you mentioned the Inquisitor, which is almost the subsection of investigator. The surgeon, analyst, dream singer, I think is very cool. I definitely like to touch on the magic that comes into this world as well. As you mentioned, that it does have kind of that early industrial, but still like magically maybe influenced sort of world, authoritarian, but still investigating these horrors or these crimes. How does magic tie into the world of Candlelight Inquisition?
All right, awesome. So I would say that there's sort of like two avenues of magic here. One avenue of magic is science magic. I do this whole like lost old age trope in this setting. So there is, some time ago, there was an technologically advanced age that collapsed due to reasons I will not get onto a tangent about. And some of their technology is still left over. And the state and the state religion like kind of almost worships them as like the most enlightened age. But in reality, they had their own problems, maybe more so. And the technology that you find has like a little bit of like this kind of biological, almost body horror element to it a lot of the time. Then that stuff exists within the world, but it's extremely rare and accessible. It's not like, oh, I found a magic item in a box. It's like, oh, I paid someone $1 million. Right? I'm gonna do or you might do a heist specifically to steal a relic, the other sort of magic is the dream, and the dream is a sort of very vague and surrealist magic, and it's supposed to be this magic that has only become practiced or discovered recently in the New Age. And it is when people in their sleep connect with this alien realm called the dream. Very much like our own dreams, except within it, one can see real things about the world, real things about the future or the past, real prophetic visions, or perhaps real spirits and entities beyond the comprehension. They can even weave illusions or summon spirits into the world. It's left pretty open-ended on what the dream, on the capacities of the dream, and what it truly is. Again, it's supposed to be this like the surrealist, mystic, vague thing. But if you play as an occultist or dream singer, your character will have access to these dream rituals. You can think of them sort of like spells that kind of refine the open-ended nature of the dream into a more directed way. So it's not quite, the spells aren't quite as literal as fireball. You cast a fireball, it has this preset effect, but they're not so open-ended that they provide no guidance. I think a good example is clairvoyance. It's a ritual which allows you to ask 2 questions and the dream gives you a prophetic vision about it, right? And you could have to do some things like get ritual components to shape your dream, but you still have that sort of mechanical guidance. It's 2 questions and they're answered.
Yeah, so kind of like open-ended flavor-wise, maybe even little malleability with the actual structure, but the structure's still there. I think that's really great. I love when magic systems allow for that player creativity instead of just, this is the spell, this is the name, this is what you need, this is what it does. Bing, bang, boom, here's the rules. So I think that's great.
Awesome. Cool. I'm trying to think of what else to say on the dream.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a complex world, and it almost seems like this secondary world, almost like underneath it as well, which is an interesting take on it. Yeah. So a lot to explore, it sounds like. Okay, so I definitely wanted to touch on the magic because it does seem like when we were talking about the professions, how, I mean, there's a couple of mystic options, but how everybody's kind of going to interact with magic one way or another, even if it is the, like you said, the scientific magic or the deeper, more ethereal kind of dream stuff. To go back to, yeah, please.
A tiny interruption. In terms of
No,
science
go ahead.
magic, there's like a few ounces of steampunk in the modern era, but it's not like crazy like airship sort of. It's like but that is another thing to note. If you play like the Inventor, they have a special move where they can create a gadget, a volatile gadget for a situation. So
I think that's great. I mean, I personally have no problem with steampunk. I know some people get really tired of it. I think it's nice when there's a soupçon of steampunk. But I mean, you mentioned Full Metal Alchemist being something that is, kind of maybe tertiary to it. Full Metal Alchemist absolutely has steampunk incorporated, and it's maybe not Legend of Korra levels, but it still does. I don't think you can avoid it when it comes to stuff like this. Okay, so main 2 things you said, profession and archetype. So we've kind of touched on those. There are 4 main. Am I reading that? Yeah, 4 main skills. It looks like that every character has as well. So endurance, ego, focus, and resources. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. How did those come into to gameplay?
Okay, so endurance, ego, focus, and resources. So in Candlelight Inquisition, right? The vast majority of your character features are represented by things called edge pools, right? And what an edge pool is contained of several boxes that are edge, right? And edge is a resource that you spend to get an advantage on a roll, right? Say, oh, I have the soldier profession and I'm attacking somebody. I'm going to spend my soldier profession edge and get a +1, right? So the core 4 attributes, endurance, ego, focus, and resources, those are all also represented by edge pools, right? Endurance is like, your general physical shape, how much punishment you can take, but also how strong you are, how much stamina you have. You could use it to, like, I don't know, climb or fight somebody or like resist hunger. Ego is your force of personality and your self-control. The focus is, well, it's on the 10. It's your ability to focus.
Yeah.
And then resources is sort of abstractly your gear, the quality of your gear, pocket change, and maybe even social status to a degree. The thing that separates the attributes from other edge pools is that attributes are actually primarily used to resist harm. You might have been thinking, like, why did you choose endurance and not like strength or body or something? Like, I chose endurance because it specifically implies resistance, right? I chose, the same thing for ego and focus. I could have named ego like charisma, but it is it's ego because it's something that's being taxed by maybe a tough social situation, or maybe by fear of some conflict or horror.
Yeah.
So there are several possible penalties that you get while playing this game, but one of them is you take harm to an attribute. You can resist it by spinning that attribute, but if you can't, you would take a wound. So if I couldn't resist it, an endurance harm with my endurance, I would take an endurance wound.
Okay. I really like that the terminology is almost reactionary.
Yes.
Like you're saying, a lot of these characters may be coming from a place of forced growth or forced realization that the world is imperfect, and perhaps the investigation itself of Candlelight Inquisition leading them to do these harsh truths. And I think that there's, like you were saying, strength has a level of proactiveness that I am strong, but endurance is I am being forced to be strong. And I think that's
Yes.
a really cool take on it. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So you mentioned a little bit about resources kind of tying in a little bit to like social status. Notice on the character sheet as well, there's bonds, so likely that ties in as well. And then you have favors, ideals, wounds. Um, bonds and favors, ideals. I'm seeing other edge. The section there towards the bottom of the first page, is that where you will kind of list out all of the edge that your character might have?
Yeah. If you have more edge, you could record it there. Like I was saying, professions also give you edge, so you could
Right.
record that in the professions box. The bonds, you might see that the bonds also have that box next to them.
Mhm.
Bonds also give you edge, so that's what I was saying. Like, pretty much everything in this is represented. A lot of bonuses are represented by edge. So you help somebody, you like, oh, my friend, I need to help them. You spend your bond edge with them and get a +1, right? I
Yeah,
think it's a pretty elegant system where I can give people a lot of benefits for their character, but without it becoming. But since it's a resource, it's a much easier to give a lot of these benefits without having them become like overpowered.
absolutely. I also think it's really cool that in a game that maybe can lend itself towards, again, the concept of noir often lends itself towards harsh individualism or even isolationism
Yes.
of, my character is totally alone. This almost forces the hand of community. It's, well, listen, nobody is an island. Like, you've got to
Yes.
have these ties. If you want to be successful, you got to come out of that shell. You can't be the grizzled detective staring off, 1,000 miles and monologuing. You got to have some other things you're working for. I think that's really cool.
I will actually. That's an interesting point you bring out, because I think I will want to make an aside on it.
Please.
When I call this Gothic noir, um, you brought up that noir, like classic noir, has this very cynical outlook, and I am not a cynic. Uh, I I guess I'm someone, I'm like, I see the complexity of the world and how very bad a lot of things are, and I'm like, yes, I'm still going to choose to be an idealist anyway.
Yeah.
I think maybe you can see some of that in this work. It's maybe, despite all those things I've been saying about like the conspiracies and all the, and how your characters will have to go through these trials. I generally think that this is an optimistic game. It might be a little hidden, but that is, I mean, I guess in a sense, the core fantasy that I'm selling is that we can change, like we can recognize these flaws of ourselves and the world and change them, right? And that is a very idealistic message. So
I love it though. I think it's great. I mean, to your point, the change starts internally. That is the introspection part. Even if you don't change the world, if you can change yourself for the better, that is idealistic. That is a
yes,
positive, and it doesn't always have to be, that's just Chinatown. Like it can
yeah,
be actual growth and movement in the right direction, and a win is a win. Um, that's really awesome. Looking through the character sheet stuff that you sent over, I see that there's, I mean, you got so much in here. It's clear that you put a lot of work into this game. Again, 200 pages that you
yeah.
get out of the book.
I said the character creation. The character creation is a pretty bitty. So I hope that you guys enjoy bitty character creation.
I personally do.
Yeah,
I think there's something nice about a game that you can like pick up and play, but I also think that those are great for one shots and those can be great for like, maybe short-term things. I love a game that makes me pick up a pencil and actually like put in a little bit of work into
yes.
what I'm going to do. As little math as possible is always appreciated, at least personally, but I really like when I actually get things to pick from. I mean, even Monster of the Week, which is kind of simplified. You at least get to check a few boxes here or there. But I really do, again, love, I mean, you've listed several of the affiliations that have some really cool descriptions in them. Some suggestions for personal ideals. The caste system, I think, is really cool. So I never want to give everything away for free, but is there anything in this that you particularly want to touch on and feature for the character creation?
I mean, I feel like the archetypes was big. Talking about the professions and the search questions was big. I think the group creation, I'm very satisfied with the group creation system near the top. I spoke a bit on that earlier, but I think having sort of, before everyone creates the characters, sitting down and being like, let's talk about the group we want to play and how it informs our adventure and our history together. And I think the system I had is pretty good, where you choose like a archetype, like, oh, I want to be community, police investigators, black ops, like I said before. But then once you choose your archetype and answer a few questions about specifics, like who your boss is, right? You then define roles, right? And all of the example categories have predefined roles, like the police investigator example category has detective, forensics, and Watson being like a non-detective who has a useful skill to the detectives, right? But then, so those are ones I thought was like, if you're playing this type of group, these roles, like you need somebody to fulfill this fantasy, this type of story, right? But then in addition to that, players then choose additional roles of their own creation that they want to add, right? So maybe in your police detectives, you want an enforcer, like you want maybe more action, or it's going to be, maybe you want a legal, like, I don't know, it's going to be like Abacus Finch or something. It becomes like a courtroom drama. I think, and I think this way, and once all the roles are determined, players then pick one that they want to play. And it doesn't impact your character stats at all, but it's sort of giving you a starting point to build your character from, right? And I think that this is a very good way to sort of get players to collaboratively discuss the type of game they want to run and the type of group they want to be, and sort of collaborate and, I guess, like consent to each other's characters and their places in the game, right? So like,
Yeah.
if two players both wanted to be like the selfless paladin, like knight in shining armor guy, and then they both made those characters and they're kind of like having each other, stealing each other's spotlight, I guess. You kind of avoid that issue with the role issue because everyone kind of goes in knowing what each other, the space that people are playing,
Yeah.
the narrative space people occupying in the game. This was inspired by another system, which I'm blanking on the name of, which is like the drama system. I
That
wish I
sounds
remembered
familiar. Yeah.
it. I wish I remembered it. Also, there's a random dice rolls, and you get better stats if you roll high, but you get more money if you roll low.
Okay. Bonus to both. Okay.
Yeah. And this is a game in which money is actually quite good. So
Okay. So maybe it ties into the resources aspect as well. Also, I was scrolling through the character creator. You weren't kidding. There is a full like personality test for archetype. That's wild. I thought you were being hyperbolic there for a minute. I've not seen that in a game before. That's really cool. I am absolutely of the age where I did plenty of BuzzFeed quizzes to
yeah.
figure out what, Friends cast member I was or whatever else was great at the time. I think that's really neat. I really want to shout
Thank
that
you.
out. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay, so I mean, a lot of character options in a good way. I think people. I know there's definitely people that will gravitate towards like having more choices as opposed to only a few. When it comes to gameplay, I'm also scrolling through this and I'm seeing you've gotten, I mean, so much work has been put into this. You have like a glossary of terms that are kind of unique to the world. I'm seeing that there's, monsters in the world as well. I saw that chimeras were
Yeah.
mentioned at least once.
Yeah.
When it comes, yeah, and you've got wastelanders and you have all the terminology is just incredible. Uh, when it comes to like a game of Candlelight Inquisition itself. You have people say they're, backed it on Kickstarter, which you can still do right now. There's still time to get in late pledges. But say that person picks up Candlelight Inquisition and is looking to run their first game. What suggestions might you have for them? Or even in your mind, and maybe this is a tougher question, but what does an ideal game of Candlelight Inquisition look like to you? Is this a game that's a one shot or a mini campaign? Yeah, and any thoughts that you might have on that?
So if you're getting into this game and want to play it, so first off, I would say I've designed this game for campaigns. I know people, I know people's time is limited, right? Campaigns are a big investment, but that's the game I wanted to make, and so this is about the way that the characters are balanced, the resources are balanced, are very much about long-term, having the character develop, get worn down, but also become stronger throughout a campaign, and also having these intricate conspiracies that are constantly moving subtly in the background, and as the players see the world develop both to hostile faction action but also their own response. So if you were getting into it, I would probably recommend running a short campaign first. So maybe like somewhere between like 4 to 10 sessions. 10 on the upper end, obviously. So
Sure.
that is still a lot. But the reason why is I think you can see some of the more long-term gameplay that way. But also designing complex mysteries and conspiracies is I think one of the more difficult things for a GM in prep. And I think doing a smaller one first, kind of getting your foot in and seeing how the games work and systems do, then maybe following it up with another related conspiracy. But speaking on that thought of how setting up conspiracies and mysteries can be hard on the GM, it's one of the more hard adventures to write. This is also something I spent some attention on in the book. There is essentially some GM instructions on how to set up your own factions and conspiracies. Sort of like outlining, like, choose 3 factions. We're going to have like this clock system where you have the steps of their plans, defining a face for your faction, someone like this. Not getting too much into it, but I think that it's a very useful tool for preparing your game, and also not only preparing it, but keeping it feeling living as you're running it. So I kind of rambled there a little bit.
Not at all. Not at all. No, I think that's really great, because I know mysteries, speaking personally, can sometimes be one of the harder things to run, because you want to, I think it can be tough to reveal things at the right time, to keep them from just like automatically figuring it out. That's always one of my biggest worries anytime I introduce a mystery in any game is, are they going to figure out in 10 seconds? Are they going to circumvent something I didn't think of? Because that is, I keep coming back to the word noir, and we've talked about a lot how the themes of it aren't in perfect alignment, although it still does work as a good word for Candlelight Inquisition. But noir always has that point in it where, like, they've come to a dead end. The detective, the investigators come to a dead end, and they're not sure where to go next, and then something happens, or they've aligned the clues, but the clues don't perfectly get you where you're supposed to. So I really appreciate personally the guidance for creating and operating a mystery, because I think some people, especially if they are more combat game focused, it's up, here's a monster, you found it, you walk through the door, it's right there, go and fight it. And this game doesn't necessarily have that component to it, for great reasons. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I'm assuming we're talking, because we talked about how, multi-session, 10 on the upper end, 3-hour sessions on average.
Yes.
So getting through several conspiracies, what kind of, is there, I guess, to the mystery point that you were making, do you have like a step generation? Do you have a rough outline for, like, they should be hitting this at this point, or this at this point, or any guidance perhaps that you could offer for people who might be running mystery games?
When you say a step system, how exactly, can you elaborate?
Yeah, maybe that's not a great way of saying it. I guess in general, for GMs who would be running a game of Candlelight Inquisition, any advice that you might offer to them? We can keep it more general like that, because I'm not sure what I asked a second ago. So yeah. But yeah, any advice that you would offer for GMs who would be stepping into the role and maybe have never run a mystery game before?
Okay. I think my chief advice, and this kind of this is related to what you said as well, is don't be afraid to reveal clues. Don't be afraid for your players to solve the mystery even too early. This is like some of the same advice you see in even more combat-oriented games, where people might say like, "Oh, if the players kill off someone you intended to be a big villain, just roll with it. Don't try to retcon it, right? Reward the players for succeeding, right? But beyond that, I think in mysteries, it's very easy to get hung up on the idea that mysteries are about the unknown, the uncertainty. Mysteries are not about that; they're about revelation, right? And to make myself better, I am pretty much speaking the same advice that is in Gumshoe, which is one thing I've been inspired by. It's another RPG, but sort of the idea is you should not be afraid to hand out information. You shouldn't be afraid for players to find clues. If they figure it out too early, well, that's fine. You can move on, right? And you can learn next time how to maybe create better clues, right? But it's frustrating. That's better than the players being frustrated from a mystery which no information is revealed, right? I will also say in terms of like flow and advice, I mentioned that there's like this plot system and a world clock. Something that kind of like Inquisition does is there is sort of this long-term pacing mechanism called a world clock. And when players take long actions, when the seeker takes a long action, like maybe they're resting to recover their resources, or maybe they're doing some like really long investigation, like scouring through some archives, right? You might advance the world clock. And when the world clock reaches its end, all the factions advance their plots, right? So if the players manage to figure it out and stop one, then they do that, right? It's stopped. But if they didn't, then it happens. And I think you're talking about like the steps and the pacing, and I think this is also a useful tool for pacing out mysteries. You're sort of trying to guide the players. You want them to be able to stop one of these plots, or maybe assist it if they like it, before the world clock ends, right? And then when the world clock happens, because there's more than just one faction, now the world's going to develop and there's going to be more mystery for them to uncover, right? So it kind of splits up the campaign into these more manageable mini mysteries, I guess.
That's great. That's a great answer as well. That was really well fleshed out. Will, I definitely want to talk about the Kickstarter, which is still accepting late pledges, all the cool stuff you can get from that. I want to shout out the people that have worked on this game with you. But before that, is there anything else that you particularly want to touch on about Candlelight Inquisition? Anything you think I might have missed, or anything else you think is like especially cool that you want to feature?
There's nothing that comes to mind as something that I need to talk about right now.
Fair enough. If it circles back around, just shout out.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about like the some of the like horror and mental attrition aspects, but I feel like we kind of hinted at those themes already.
Yeah, I mean, this game does, aside from the gothic, I think it does kind of have that slightly horrific aspect to it. I'm not sure if this is an inappropriate connection to make, but some of the artwork almost leans a little bit towards like Clive Barker-esque.
I am not familiar.
I'm looking at what is it? It's the image of the I'm not even sure who they're supposed to be. It's a shirtless, kind of gray skin figure that has a cube, or like almost hovering in one hand. It gave me very much like the Hellraiser cube sort of vibes. Seeing it on the Kickstarter there on the
That's
unveil the occult page. That especially, I think a lot of the other stuff maybe has more of or maybe less Clive Barker inspirations, but that one maybe it was the cube that lent it more towards anything else. But I definitely think that a lot of the artwork lends towards that um not steampunk, but that post-industrial, the again the Full Metal Alchemist sort of vibes to it,
yeah.
but a whole variety that's exemplified in the artwork as well. But please, we were mentioning the horror aspect of it. This game does seem to touch a little bit on the horror. What can people expect as far as that goes?
So I would say it's kind of up to you as the GM how horrific or less horrific that you want to make it. If you want to have the dream be full of mind building eldritch horrors and have, you know, dark chimera from the old age, and horrific technology, and I don't know, sinister and evil men in like kind of like serial killer or conspiracy horror as well. That's up to you if you want to do that, if you want to have a more straightforward detective mystery, right? But there is, I think, a strong element in the mechanics of the characters being worn down. Sort of the stress of facing these conspiracies and maybe sometimes facing it, you know, maybe alone without like the support of their factions, right? How it affects them. So I mentioned earlier that if you couldn't resist harm, then you would get a wound, right? Um, so those wounds can accumulate to cause something called a trauma in the system. And that affects another system which we have talked on called the willpower system. It's basically a push your luck system where you have a certain number of willpower, and if you fail a roll, you can re-roll. You can test will to re-roll, and if you get a perfect success, then you keep your willpower. But if you don't, you lose some. Like your character is like, I gotta give it my all. This is really important. And they push themselves, and if it's a great success, they're golden, right? You feel good about it. But if it's not, your character is discouraged from that, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I think the willpower is a resource that's slow recovering. So when you're low in willpower, it kind of feels like your character is really spent, really discouraged, right? But then when you're high, they feel very confident and fresh. But that's also sort of where the trauma comes back in, is that the trauma limits your maximum willpower, right? So I guess going back to the Nor analogies, you have characters becoming hard-boiled, right? Where the weight of everything that's been happening to them is starting to wear down.
Yeah.
And so and in terms of horror, I think you'd see a lot of interaction with the harm and the wounds and the willpower and trauma system if you're doing a more horror-focused campaign. But even if you're doing like a pure investigation campaign, you're going to interface with these mechanics to maybe show some of the mental toll it has on your characters. And then, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love the internal gamble of betting on yourself and then potentially losing. Because yeah,
Yeah.
that does have that drain. Absolutely. That's really cool. I love that the horror aspect is, like I said, it's kind of a sliding scale for the GM,
Hmm.
but I think again, looking at the artwork, you can see that there is a certain level of horror that's incorporated into this. We mentioned kind of up at the top, there is this like beautiful bleakness to some of the artwork, this like almost stained glass feel in some of it, but also like bone motifs that are incorporated into some of it, and then kind of I'm trying to remember. There's a movie that it reminds me a lot of, and I'm not going to remember the name of it, so I wanted to even bring it up. But there's a number of like visual media that this evokes, but is still so incredibly unique, and even like the layout of it has that grit to it, but it's still so beautiful in all of the grit. So kind of going off of that, we mentioned Anton being the
Yes.
artist a little bit earlier. Um, and what I remind me, what's Anton's last name, if you remember?
Uh, I'm probably gonna butcher it. It's Drasimov.
Okay, so fantastic job from Anton on this. Any other people that you want to shout out who also contributed to Candlelight Inquisition?
Yes, I would love to. Yeah, and I agree. Anton did a fantastic job for the art. That I can take no credit for that really. So I'm very grateful to have him on the team.
Yeah, you had it in your
He,
mind for 12 years, or since you were 12.
yeah,
So, I mean, it's he brought it to fruition. It's a team effort, but absolutely very quality work.
the I would say um he first goes by his brand name, but there was a whole edition helped me with the logo.
Great.
I think I can find his website.
The logo
Uh,
for Candlelight Inquisition or for Blackmouth Cur?
the logo for Candlelight Inquisition.
Great.
Uh, so that was then uh I have one of my personal friends, Will Gibbs, also another Will, is an editor. I mean to put him on the team page actually. Um, so he is. I'm a terrible typist. I'm typing, and it's like you repeated the 3 times in a row, and then you omitted like the meaningful part of the sentence. Like, oh yeah, okay. So I'm glad to
You know
have an
what?
editor.
That's why we have editors, right?
Yeah,
Like writing is hard enough without having to do it correct the first time. That's why they
yeah,
call them rough drafts.
yes, exactly. He's also just been helpful with bouncing design ideas off of and supporting the project, being very passionate about it. Uh, Likewise goes for my brother, who has been a great help in being encouraging and helping me bring it to cons and stuff. Jonathan. Then I'm
Yeah, actually, I believe I saw him in the comments on the Kickstarter. So, yeah, so it feels like he's very supportive. That's great to see.
yes. um, then we don't have any art from him yet, but I am actually bringing on a second artist who complements Anton's style, uh, David uh, Holdlack.
Okay.
Um, just sort of to fit the production, you know, to make sure that we get the book done with all the art it needs
Yeah.
by the time. And I also think that he's an excellent artist, though I don't have anything yet to show you. Uh, he's still doing his drafts of the things I commissioned him for. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds like folks will see it in the book when it comes out then.
yes, exactly.
Very cool. Okay. To that point, again, congratulations on the successful Kickstarter. Again, there is still time for late pledges. I did see on the Kickstarter that you're looking to shoot for August of next year for release of this book. Is that still the plan?
That is correct.
Very cool. So for folks who have pledged or who hopefully will be pledging here very soon. What kind of stuff can we look for in the rewards?
So in the rewards, uh, so the first tier is um, the initiate tier. It gives you a PDF which has a quick start rule set and a quick start adventure. So this isn't going to be the full rules. It's going to be an abbreviated rule set, um, with some pre-generated characters and a very quick, like one-shot adventure to play. Give you a feel of the setting and the game's systems. Um, and also, I mean, it's streamlined rules. Like maybe if you like the full game, you might want to play a one shot using the streamlined rule set sometime, right? Um, then the $20 tier is the Acolyte tier. It gives you a PDF of the full core rulebook, which, as I said, is like, as Derek has said, actually, it's like 200 pages, maybe more, with illustrations, as much best illustrated as we have time and I can afford. um, the uh, so that includes the full character creation, the full core rules, some extended rules, how to deal with like downtime and society stuff like wealth, and a huge list of factions, tips for the GM how to create your plots, a list of encounters that you can plug in, uh, some dream, sorcery, and spells, relics and technology, and a setting. So quite a bit. Uh, it also includes the quick start in that tier, and it will include some digital character tokens with the art so that you can use them easily on a virtual tabletop. Then the $60 tier is the Inquisitor tier. It has the hardcover of the book and then all the previous things. So the top two tiers, they were limited to the running of the Kickstarter. So they are no longer available, but what they were was the Conspirator tier, which I would sign your book, and you'd get these reusable character sheets I would print for you in addition to everything else. And then the wire polo tiers, which I would sign your book, I would give you a personalized letter, and you'd also get specially made custom dice made by Jin from Long Dog Dice.
There you go. Okay. Jen's been
Yeah,
talking about this for quite some time, so I
yeah,
didn't want to again didn't want to necessarily get to that too early. But yes, if you love what Jen does, I think she was talking about this is one of the first projects she's done for like a Kickstarter almost ever. So that's really awesome. I'm really glad that you got it because she's does incredible
yeah.
work.
She's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want, if you don't mind me sitting up, I can get one of the dice.
No, you're totally yeah, go for it. It's a great time to also say that you can get any Long Dog Dice set with 10% off your first purchase with code Sword and Key. I will show off my dice while we are waiting here so we can show off some more Long Dog Dice stuff. So
Uh,
we can
I
we
got here
can
at an inopportune time. You're just about
no,
to show
you're
off
great. We
something.
can share our dice so we can split we can show off our dice. Those are gorgeous. Those are great. Oh, the eye symbols. That's so cool.
Yeah, I got this. This is like the holy symbol that they use is the six,
That's
and I
so
got
cool.
the
It does
eyes.
such an awesome job, especially with D6s, and I know that that's definitely a feature in this game.
Yes.
That's really cool. So really cool reward tier for those.
Um, I'm considering making them. I'm considering making the dice standalone and add-on for late pledges.
Yeah,
I'm uncertain right now. I'm still making up my mind.
that's fair. Okay, so lots of really cool things on the reward system tier. So again, still time to get in your late pledges. Don't wait. I always tell people that don't wait for you to forget because
Yes.
I forget. Do it now
Uh,
while you're thinking about it.
we're actually quite we're pretty close to our first stretch goal, which is adding like a full uh case file. So a full like conspiracy mystery module to the core rule set.
Hmm.
Which I would really like to get that done. I mean, well,
Yeah, what
no
is
promises. It might be included anyway, but it won't be as well. It won't be as well illustrated unless it's funded.
yeah, they're called stretch goals for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you stretch goals 7,500 and you're sitting, at least according to Kickstarter, at 6711. It's less
Yeah.
than, yeah, you're so close.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. When do, I guess it's a good question. When do the late pledges close, or are they just open? I'm not super fluent in Kickstarter, so I don't know if there's a window for them.
Yeah. I'm not gonna leave them open forever.
Sure.
I can essentially leave them open forever if I desire to. Well, I shouldn't say that. I believe I would have to stop it if I started selling them somewhere else, like legally. But
Yeah.
for in terms of the decent recent future, I'm uncertain for now. I would stop it if we reached our goal, our stretch goal, or perhaps if another month or two passes. I'm still making up my mind how long I want to run it. I might see just how fruitful it is. I don't think I can say for certain I'm not going to keep it open till release. I don't. Some of the benefit of a Kickstarter is in its limitedness and its ephemerality, right?
Hmm.
And I don't want to diminish that by being like, oh, thank you for backing the Kickstarter in time. It's just going to keep happening indefinitely.
Right. Yeah. I totally get that. So again, folks, don't wait. Go and do it now. Um, Well, thank you so much for joining us for Sword and Tea. Thank you so much for sharing Candlelight Inquisition. One last time that Kickstarter ended, but still open. So don't wait. Get those late pledges in. Will, where can people find more of yourself and more of Candlelight Inquisition?
Well, we have a website, candlelightinquisition.com. I would also highly encourage you to join the Discord. We have several people there who are very excited for the game, and I use it also to find testers. If I'm like, hey, I'm looking someone to run this module I'm testing, or I'm looking someone to GM for me, right? I will ask my Discord first. So, if you're interested in that, you should join the Discord. It's on the website, but I will also copy a link. There's also a newsletter on the website you can join. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram. I'm not honestly super social media savvy, so mixed return with that. Still, you should. I mean, if you like the project, you should follow me. I would be greatly honored. In terms of me. I mentioned before that I'm a fairly new to the market designer. There's some other projects I've worked on and am working on. But some of them are like video games, some of them are board games and stuff. But this
That's
is
really cool.
my first. I would say for now, this is pretty much my main public presence.
Yeah,
Is this game.
that's awesome. Well, I hope to see even more of you because everything that I've read, everything that I've seen shows that you are a great writer, very
Thank
creative,
you.
and yeah, I mean, what a cool game with incredible world building and character creation and just this unique take on a genre that I think often gets well tread, and this is a very interesting and kind of like refreshing take on a lot of it.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, again, congratulations on the Kickstarter and best of luck with what comes next. If there's video games or board games or other TTRPGs, we'll look for your name on the tin for all of them.
I
Well, yeah.
I'm sure that you flatter me too much. I will say I am very grateful for you for giving me a platform to talk about my game for over an hour. So I thank you. So
More than happy to. We could probably go on for a few hours, but at that point, I think we'd probably give away the whole Kickstarter at that point.
yes.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, this is kind of why we do this. I don't think that TTRPG writers, creators, designers get verbal affirmation enough, and I think it could be a very isolating process sometimes to put so much of yourself into something and then have to put a price tag on it and then hope that people are going to see the
Yeah,
monetary value
be
in
interested in it.
something
Yeah.
that shouldn't have monetary value. Yeah. So no, it is our pleasure to have you. Whatever comes next, we look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been Sword and Tea. I am Derek Sword. I am the sword half of Sword and Key, and I guess technically the sword half of Sword and Tea, although I guess the tea is the other half of this, which I don't think anybody actually drank this stream, which is also fine. Um, if you would like to find more of Sword and Key's stuff, check out beacons.ai/Sword and Key. You can find all of our links. We have our socials, that's Instagram and Blue Sky. We have our Discord, which you can hang out, talk with cool folks about cool games like this one. We do have a channel for Sword and Tea, so if you do have questions for Will later on, or for any Sword and Teas, you're welcome to post them there. And if I cannot answer them, I will find somebody that can, like Will. If you are looking at other stuff on Beacons, you can see links to some of our charitable organizations. We have some evergreen ones like Palestine Children's Relief Fund. We're going to be having a new campaign in mid-September, a mini one, because it's going to be my birthday, and it's Canine Companions for Independence, which is cause is very near and dear to my heart, as my family are volunteer puppy raisers for that. So we'll be having a charity game. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But we did just close out our charity campaign for Doctors Without Borders. Thank you so much for everybody who donated to that. I believe we ended at $1,415, which I think has been one of our more successful campaigns. So thank you to all of you who watched those shows, who donated, who switched up those games in very interesting ways. Um, for other stuff on the beacons, you can see links to our affiliates. We have affiliates like the many mentioned Long Dog Dice. Janet Long Dog Dice makes incredible dice sets like the ones you have seen in this stream. If you're looking to get your own perfect dice set, you can use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase. Also affiliates with Eldritch Foundry. They make custom minis. No matter how weird and wild or normal and mild your TTRPG character might be, you can get a mini of them. They have new options every week to spice up your particular character, including they've recently introduced busts for your character, which I think are really cool for miniature painters, if that is your vibe. Use code Sword and Key for 10% off your first purchase with them. And then we're also affiliates with Hit Point Press, the makers of Humblewood, Animated Spell Cards, Islands of St. Una, Griffin's Saddlebag. They have music licenses, they have plush, they have miniatures, tons and tons of stuff. We have an affiliate link if you're going to be purchasing from them. Also on Beacons, you can find links to the podcast Monster Crush, currently the only podcast part of the Sword and Key Network. It is a podcast that I do with my friend Aldi. We talk about cryptids, creatures, and miscellaneous monsters from myth and how cute they are and how smoochable they are. And we find beauty in the horrifying. So if you love monsters or love monsters, you can check that out wherever podcasts are found. We are currently on hiatus, however, we will have our summer break. We will have new episodes out relatively soon, come mid-September. But you can always enjoy the backlog, including our most recent episode about Goosebumps monsters. Other stuff. My brain just went blank. That's probably most of it, right? We are going to be rating. Let's see. Click through all of my tabs. I have way too many tabs. We're going to be rating Altered Echo Archives. So go over there, spread some positivity, and until we see you next time. Actually, I didn't even talk about our calendar. I'm going to talk about our calendar real quick. That was the thing I was forgetting. But until we see you next time, take care of yourself and others. I'll say that again here in a second. But let's see. Today is the 31st. If you didn't catch it earlier today, go and watch the VOD and then catch the next episode next week of You're in Space and Everything is Fucked, a two-person game with Anik and Michael, where Anik is playing a space station that is trying to kill the astronaut, Michael, who is trying to survive. But knowing Anik, who runs many of our horror games, I wouldn't bet on Michael in this one. But You're in Space and Everything's Fucked is going to play next Sunday for its finale at 10 a.m. Pacific time, so that is the 7th. Speaking of this week, on Tuesday the 2nd at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we have the next episode of Gate Night. That is where LD Shadow and I play Baldur's Gate 3, currently the only video game streamed here on Sword and Key. On the 5th, that is Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, we have our next movie night. Movie nights are free. They're on our Discord. All you have to do is just be around and watch. We just stream them. And our next one is part of our monthly Ghibli watch. We'll be watching the 2020 3D Ghibli movie, Earwig and the Witch. Maybe 3D isn't the right word, but the one that isn't 2D animation. On Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we have the next episode of Horizon's Call. That's our ongoing nautical campaign. And then Sunday, as I mentioned, You're in Space and Everything is Fucked at 10 a.m. And then at 3 p.m., we have our next Sword and Tea, where we will be talking about Tactics Memoriam with the game creator of that. So check us out a week from today for more Sword and Tea stuff. As stuff goes on throughout September, it's pretty typical schedule. The only interruption to that being at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the 14th, we have my birthday stream. It's not exactly my birthday, but it's close enough. We'll be raising money for Canine Companions for Independence, and we'll be playing a 5e game using the puppy roll setting, which is free through Hit Point Press. So if you want to check that out, that's on their website as well. And I've got a great cast. We're all going to be playing our particular pets, but the 5e versions of them. So I really need to figure out what class my dog is. I have a couple of ideas, but if you have any suggestions, throw them out. Otherwise, that's probably it for tonight. So until we see you next time, hopefully sooner rather than later, take care of yourselves, take care of others. And again, we're going to be raiding Altered Echo Archives, Ghost Spreads, and Positivity over there. Thank you again to Will. Thank you again to all of you. We'll see you soon.